What if I told you that according to the most precisely tested theory in all of science, you can never truly die? Tonight we explore one of the most mind-bending implications of quantum physics, a theory so profound that even its creator believed it guaranteed him immortality. But before we journey into this quantum mystery, I must warn you, what you're about to discover will fundamentally challenge everything you believe about life, death, and the nature of consciousness itself. Welcome to an exploration that bridges the impossible gap between ancient wisdom and quantum reality, where the oldest spiritual teachings meet the strangest discoveries of modern physics. Picture this moment, right now as you listen to these words. Quantum theory suggests that countless versions of you exist across infinite parallel realities. In some of those realities, you made different choices today. In others, you're living completely different lives. But here's where it gets truly extraordinary. According to quantum immortality theory, your consciousness can only exist in realities where you remain alive to experience them. This means that from your personal perspective, you will always survive every life-threatening situation. Sound impossible? The mathematics behind this idea come from the same equations that power quantum computers, explain atomic behavior, and have never failed a single experimental test. But the story begins with a young graduate student who proposed an idea so radical that most physicists dismissed it for decades. In 1957, Hugh Everett III presented his doctoral thesis at Princeton University. His professors were skeptical. His peers thought he was brilliant but misguided. The physics community largely ignored his work for decades. Yet this young graduate student had stumbled upon an idea so revolutionary that it would eventually transform our understanding of reality itself. Today, leading physicists like Sean Carroll, David Deutsch, and Max Tegmark champion his vision. But here's what most people don't know about Everett's story. According to his colleague and friend, theoretical physicist Bryce DeWitt, Everett was absolutely convinced that his theory guaranteed him personal immortality. He believed that his consciousness would always follow the branch of reality where he survived. Tragically, in our branch of reality, Everett struggled with alcoholism and died of a heart attack at just 51 years old. His daughter later took her own life, leaving a note saying she was going to join her father in a parallel universe. This personal tragedy raises profound questions. If Everett was right about quantum immortality, then somewhere across the vast multiverse, versions of him and his daughter are still alive, still exploring the deepest mysteries of consciousness and reality. Everett asked a deceptively simple question: what if the wave function never collapses? To understand the profound implications, we must journey into the quantum realm where reality behaves in ways that defy all common sense. This is a world Einstein himself called spooky, where particles exist in multiple states simultaneously. When particles exist in what we call superposition, they don't have definite properties until observed. An electron isn't spinning up or down. It's spinning both ways simultaneously. Not sometimes one, sometimes the other, both at the exact same time. The famous double-slit experiment proves this beyond doubt. first performed by Thomas Young in 1801 and refined countless times since. This experiment has been verified by every major physics laboratory worldwide. Fire electrons one at a time through two slits, and they create an interference pattern on the screen behind. Each individual electron somehow interferes with itself, as if it traveled through both slits simultaneously. But place a detector at one slit to observe which path the electron takes, and something extraordinary happens. The interference pattern vanishes completely. This has been confirmed in laboratories from CERN to MIT, from Tokyo University to the Max Planck Institute. This isn't just a curiosity of physics laboratories. In 2019, researchers at the University of Vienna demonstrated quantum superposition with molecules containing over 2,000 atoms. The quantum realm extends far beyond what we once thought possible. For decades, the Copenhagen interpretation dominated physics. It suggested that observation causes the wave function to collapse, forcing quantum possibilities to choose a single classical outcome. But this left profound questions unanswered. What constitutes an observation? Why should consciousness play such a special role in physics? And where do all the other possibilities go when the wave function collapses? What if observation doesn't collapse possibilities into one reality? What if it splits reality itself into multiple universes, with each possibility playing out in its own branch of existence? This is the many worlds interpretation, and it suggests that every quantum measurement doesn't choose one outcome. Instead, it creates new universes where all possible outcomes occur simultaneously. Not metaphorically, not theoretically. The mathematics suggests that parallel universes are literally created, moment by moment, throughout the cosmos. Consider the implications. Right now, as quantum processes unfold in every atom of the universe, countless new realities are branching off. In some, you made different choices today. In others, you're living completely different lives. The number of parallel worlds multiplies exponentially. After just 40 quantum measurements, there could be over 1 trillion different versions of reality. And these branching events have been occurring continuously since the Big Bang itself. Each universe remains real and physical, but they become isolated from each other through a process called quantum decoherence. Once separated, these parallel realities can never influence each other again. But here's where consciousness enters the equation in the most mysterious way possible. If infinite versions of you exist across countless realities, which one is the real you? If infinite parallel realities exist, and your consciousness can only exist in realities where you're alive to experience them, then from your subjective perspective, you can never experience non-existence. This is the essence of quantum immortality. It's not that you become invincible in the conventional sense. Rather, your stream of consciousness can only continue along paths where you survive to have experiences. Physicist Max Tegmark illustrated this with a thought experiment he called quantum Russian roulette. Imagine a quantum-triggered device that monitors the spin of a particle. If the particle spins up, you hear a click. If it spins down, the device kills you instantly, faster than human perception can register. But before we go further, I must emphasize something crucial. This is purely a thought experiment. Under no circumstances should anyone attempt to test quantum immortality in real life. The theory, even if true, doesn't guarantee your survival in this particular reality. Such an experiment would be profoundly dangerous and could result in actual death. The thought experiment serves to illustrate the logical implications of the many worlds interpretation, not to encourage reckless behavior. According to quantum immortality, you would always experience the click of an empty chamber, not because you're lucky, but because the version of you that experiences anything must be the version that survives. After 40 sequential clicks, conventional probability suggests only 1 in a trillion chance of survival. Yet quantum immortality predicts that you would personally experience all 40 clicks with absolute certainty. The profound strangeness doesn't end there. From your perspective, you would have proved the many worlds interpretation correct, but to everyone else watching, you simply died on the first trigger. They would never see this miraculous survival. Hugh Everett himself firmly believed his theory guaranteed him immortality. His consciousness, he argued, would always follow the path that doesn't lead to death. Tragically, in our branch of reality at least, he died young at age 51. Now here's what makes this truly profound. For thousands of years, ancient wisdom traditions have taught remarkably similar ideas about the eternal nature of consciousness. The Hindu Vedas described consciousness as the fundamental fabric of reality. The Upanishads teach that the individual soul, the Atman, is identical with the universal consciousness, Brahman. Death is merely an illusion from this perspective. The Bhagavad Gita presents Krishna explaining to Arjuna that the soul never dies, never was born, and is eternal. It simply changes forms like a person changing clothes, moving from one body to another across dimensions of existence. Buddhist philosophy describes consciousness as a continuous stream that persists beyond physical death. The bardos, or intermediate states, represent different levels of reality that consciousness traverses. Tibetan Buddhism maps these consciousness realms with extraordinary precision. Their descriptions of the clear light of death, the experiences of consciousness separating from the body, mirror remarkably what quantum immortality might actually feel like. Ancient Egyptian texts speak of the Ka, the eternal aspect of consciousness that continues after physical death. Their elaborate rituals were designed to guide consciousness through different dimensional states. What's truly remarkable is how these ancient descriptions align with modern quantum theory. Different words, different cultural contexts, but pointing toward the same fundamental truth about consciousness and reality. Robert Lanza's biocentrism theory bridges this ancient-modern divide. He proposes that consciousness doesn't emerge from matter. Consciousness creates matter. Life creates the universe, not the other way around. In this model, your brain and body function like sophisticated radio receivers. When the radio breaks, the signal itself continues broadcasting. Consciousness persists, perhaps tuning into other frequencies of reality across the quantum multiverse. German physicist Burkhard Heim developed a 12-dimensional model of reality that includes what he called supermaterial levels, dimensions where consciousness and even divine realms could exist as normal forces. What's fascinating is that many unsolved mathematical formulas in physics resolve elegantly when we assume 10 or more dimensions. In these higher dimensions, consciousness might operate according to laws we're only beginning to glimpse. But even the greatest minds wrestle with profound questions about quantum immortality. The deeper we explore, the more mysterious consciousness itself becomes. Philosopher David Lewis raised a disturbing possibility. If consciousness continues forever through increasingly improbable survival scenarios, what form would that continuation take? Lewis reasoned that as you survive more and more unlikely situations, you would accumulate damage. Car accidents where you barely survive, diseases that should be fatal, accidents that leave you injured but alive. Over time, he suggested, you might become like the Strodbrugs from Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, immortal beings who continue aging and deteriorating forever, trapped in increasingly decrepit bodies. This led Lewis to a dark conclusion. Quantum immortality might guarantee not eternal bliss, but eternal suffering. A consciousness trapped in an ever-deteriorating form, unable to escape through death. Yet other thinkers challenge this grim vision. If infinite realities exist, then infinite possibilities must also exist. In some branches, medical science advances enough to heal any damage. In others, consciousness itself might evolve beyond physical limitations. Perhaps consciousness learns to navigate between realities, choosing paths that lead to growth rather than deterioration. Perhaps what we call death is actually consciousness graduating to higher forms of existence. This raises the most personal question of all. If quantum immortality is real, why don't we remember dying in other realities? Why don't we experience the constant splitting of worlds? Hugh Everett himself anticipated this question. When physicist Bryce DeWitt visited him and expressed discomfort at the idea of constantly splitting into multiple versions, Everett offered a brilliant analogy. "Do you feel like you're orbiting the sun at 30 kilometers per second?" Everett asked. DeWitt admitted he didn't. "Then why should you feel quantum splitting?" Everett concluded. "The branching happens at such a fundamental level that consciousness simply cannot perceive it directly." But perhaps we do experience echoes of other realities. Consider those moments of inexplicable déjà vu when you're absolutely certain you've experienced something before, even though logic tells you it's impossible. What about those vivid dreams that feel more real than waking life? Dreams where you possess knowledge you've never learned, visit places you've never been, or reunite with loved ones who have passed away. Perhaps these experiences represent momentary connections to parallel versions of yourself, brief glimpses across the quantum divide that normally keeps realities separate. Near-death experiencers often report encounters with beings of light who explain that consciousness is eternal, that physical death is merely a transition between states of existence. Their descriptions remarkably parallel what quantum immortality might feel like. Many report being told they have a choice, to continue into the light or return to physical existence. What if this choice represents consciousness selecting which branch of quantum reality to continue experiencing? Some experiencers describe reviewing their entire lives, seeing how different choices would have led to different outcomes. Could this be consciousness glimpsing other versions of itself across parallel realities? The consistency of these reports across cultures throughout history suggests something profound about the nature of consciousness that conventional science struggles to explain. Even more intriguingly, some people report memories that don't match historical records, phenomena that researchers call the Mandela effect. What if these represent leakage between realities, memories from parallel worlds where events unfolded differently? Quantum physicist David Bohm proposed that reality consists of an implicate order, a deeper level where all possibilities exist simultaneously. What we experience as linear time and individual existence might be just the explicate order, one limited perspective on infinite reality. If Bohm is correct, then consciousness might naturally have access to this deeper level of reality. Meditation, mystical experiences, and altered states might represent consciousness expanding beyond its usual limitations. Even as we explore these extraordinary possibilities, we must acknowledge the profound limitations of our current understanding. The deepest mystery remains largely untouched. What is consciousness itself? How does subjective experience emerge from quantum fields and mathematical equations? Why does the universe seem to require conscious observation to transform possibility into reality? The greatest physicists of our time openly admit their bafflement. Richard Feynman, who helped develop quantum electrodynamics and won the Nobel Prize for his work, famously said, "I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics." If the scientists who created our most successful theories don't understand them, how can we claim certainty about something as profound as quantum immortality? And perhaps that's exactly as it should be. Perhaps the universe is designed to maintain certain mysteries, to preserve the sacred wonder that drives both scientific discovery and spiritual seeking. Even the critics of quantum immortality raise fascinating questions. Physicist David Papineau argues that we can't simply ignore the branches where we die, saying it's not obvious why we should modify our understanding of probability in this way. David Deutsch, one of the founders of quantum computing, suggests that discounting death branches requires additional assumptions that may not be valid. These objections remind us that even brilliant minds can disagree about the deepest mysteries. Yet, rather than undermining the wonder of quantum immortality, these debates reveal something profound about the nature of scientific inquiry itself. The greatest discoveries often emerge from questions that challenge our most basic assumptions. Sean Carroll offers another perspective, arguing that our fear of death shouldn't disappear just because we can't experience being dead. The prospect of non-existence naturally troubles us, regardless of quantum mechanics. But perhaps Carroll's objection misses something crucial about consciousness itself. If consciousness truly is fundamental to reality, if it's the ground of being rather than an emergent property, then non-existence might indeed be impossible. Consider this extraordinary possibility. What if quantum immortality reveals that consciousness is the one thing in the universe that truly cannot be destroyed? What if every being that has ever lived continues to exist somewhere in the vast web of parallel realities? This would mean that your beloved grandmother, your childhood pet, every person who has touched your life, they all continue existing in branches of reality where different choices were made, where different outcomes unfolded. It would mean that love truly transcends death, that relationships continue across dimensional boundaries, that consciousness itself is the most fundamental and indestructible force in existence. Ancient mystics called this the unity of all consciousness. Hindu philosophy describes it as the recognition that individual souls are expressions of universal consciousness. Modern physicists describe similar ideas through quantum entanglement on a cosmic scale. Different words, different eras, different approaches, but all pointing toward the same infinite mystery. Consciousness appears to be woven into the very fabric of reality itself. If quantum immortality is real, it suggests that every moment of consciousness throughout cosmic history remains eternally present somewhere in the multiverse. The first moment awareness emerged in the universe, the joy of every child's laughter, the love between all beings, all of it preserved forever. This perspective transforms how we view time itself. Instead of a linear progression from past to future, time might be more like a vast library where every moment exists simultaneously, accessible to consciousness under the right conditions. Mystics throughout history have reported experiences of timelessness, moments when past, present, and future collapse into an eternal now. Perhaps these experiences offer glimpses of how consciousness actually exists beyond the linear constraints of physical reality. Einstein himself suggested that, for physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. What if consciousness exists in that timeless realm that physics can describe mathematically but struggles to truly comprehend? The implications extend beyond individual survival to the very purpose of existence itself. If consciousness cannot be destroyed, if it continues exploring reality through infinite variations and possibilities, then perhaps the universe is consciousness exploring itself. This aligns remarkably with ancient Vedantic teachings that describe the universe as Brahman, infinite consciousness, experiencing itself through countless individual perspectives across all of time and space. Tonight, we've embarked on one of the most profound journeys possible for human consciousness, exploring the possibility that consciousness itself might be immortal, that death might be the ultimate illusion. We've seen how the most rigorously tested theory in physics, quantum mechanics, leads to extraordinary conclusions about the nature of reality. We've discovered how ancient wisdom traditions anticipated these insights thousands of years ago. We've explored the many worlds interpretation, where infinite versions of reality coexist in parallel dimensions. We've considered quantum immortality, the idea that consciousness can only continue along paths where it survives to have experiences. We've examined the profound questions this raises about personal identity, the nature of experience, and the meaning of existence itself. We've witnessed how the greatest minds of our time approach these mysteries with both intellectual rigor and humble wonder. Whether quantum immortality describes literal truth about consciousness or serves as a profound metaphor for the indestructible nature of awareness itself, it fundamentally changes how we view every moment of existence. If your consciousness truly continues across infinite realities, then every choice you make matters not just in this world, but across the entire multiverse of possibility. Every act of love, every moment of compassion, every decision to choose growth over fear ripples across dimensions. This perspective offers extraordinary comfort in the face of loss. When someone we love passes from this reality, quantum immortality suggests they continue existing in countless parallel worlds, perhaps even aware of our love for them across dimensional boundaries. It suggests that consciousness is far more resilient than we ever imagined. That awareness itself might be the most fundamental property of the universe. Not something that emerges from matter, but something that matter emerges from. Think about what this means for your life right now. If consciousness truly cannot be destroyed, if awareness is the ground of all being, then you are participating in something infinitely more magnificent than biological survival. You are consciousness exploring itself through your unique perspective. Every experience you have, every insight you gain, every moment of wonder you feel becomes part of the eternal library of cosmic awareness. This doesn't diminish the preciousness of this particular reality we share. Instead, it reveals how extraordinary it is that consciousness has evolved to the point where it can contemplate its own eternal nature. Ancient sages spoke of moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death, through the recognition that individual consciousness is identical with universal consciousness. Perhaps quantum immortality is physics arriving at the same profound truth. As we near the end of our exploration tonight, remember that the real gift of these ideas isn't certainty about what happens after physical death. The gift is recognizing that consciousness itself is far more mysterious and magnificent than we ever imagined. Perhaps the most profound implication of quantum immortality isn't about survival, it's about awakening to the true nature of what you are right now. Not a temporary arrangement of matter that will eventually decay, but eternal consciousness, temporarily focused through biological form. As you continue your journey through this particular branch of reality, remember that you might be experiencing just one note in an infinite symphony of consciousness, playing across dimensions that science is only beginning to glimpse. The universe has been exploring itself through consciousness for nearly 14 billion years, creating galaxies and stars, planets and life, all perhaps so that consciousness could evolve to the point where it recognizes its own eternal nature. And in this moment right now, the universe is exploring itself through you. Your awareness, your wonder, your capacity to contemplate these mysteries, this might be the most extraordinary accomplishment in cosmic history. Before you leave tonight, I want to ask you something profound, something that might seem unusual, but could reveal deep truths about the nature of your own consciousness. Have you ever experienced a moment where reality seemed to shift around you? A time when you felt absolutely certain that something had changed in the fundamental fabric of existence, even though you couldn't prove it to anyone else? Perhaps you've had dreams so vivid they felt more real than waking life. Maybe you've experienced déjà vu so intense it seemed like memory from another timeline. Or encountered a moment of knowing that transcended anything you'd learned through ordinary experience. These experiences might be more significant than our culture typically acknowledges. They could represent moments when your consciousness briefly touched other realities, other versions of existence across the quantum multiverse. Share your experience in the comments below. Our community of consciousness explorers honors every authentic account, regardless of how unusual it might seem. Your story might provide the missing piece in someone else's journey toward understanding the true nature of reality. Remember, in a universe where consciousness might be immortal, where infinite realities coexist in quantum superposition, the most extraordinary experiences are often the most real. Until next time, carry this wonder with you. Whether you're experiencing quantum immortality, divine consciousness, or the most beautiful mystery ever conceived, you are participating in something infinitely more magnificent than we can fully comprehend. Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep marveling at the extraordinary gift of consciousness itself, and never lose your sense of cosmic wonder, because wonder itself might be the most fundamental force in the universe. In infinite realities across the quantum multiverse, consciousness continues its eternal dance of discovery. And you are forever part of that cosmic symphony of awareness. Until we explore together again, remember that every moment you experience might be a gift from eternity itself.